This meeting is being recorded.
This is new. How's it going, everyone? This is Robert Jackson. Not sure where that voice came from, but anyways, yeah, welcome to the podcast. And we had some technical difficulties, but nonetheless, we are finally here, and this is my first interview of 2023. I'm so excited. So, yeah, and we're gonna kick off this new year with I know I keep saying a very special guest because they're all special guests on the show. But this dude, you've heard him on series such as Gargoyles, you've seen him on a lot of other shows, and I'm so excited to have him on. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Mr. Um, I am terrible with pronouncing names. That's just kind of like something that I butcher a lot on the podcast. So
Me
you get
too.
to introduce yourself.
Thom Adcox-Hernandez.
Tom,
Was
yes.
that
So,
good?
yep. So, thank you
Okay.
for joining me for this evening. I'm really excited. And yeah, would you like to share more about yourself for the two or three people are who stumble upon this little interview and may want to get a little taste of who you are
Let's
and what you do and
see.
all that fun jazz?
Well, I started out as an on-camera actor. Well, I started in theater in high school. I did the plays and theater and all that. And I'm from Detroit, and I always knew from the time I was so little, I always knew that I was going to be an actor. I just knew it. I didn't know how, because there was nobody in my family or I had no connections or anything like that. So as soon as I graduated high school, I came right out to LA, and I drove out, and I had zero money, and I started going to this. I noticed there was this dance school. It was a dance, singing, and acting studio, and I didn't have any money to for classes. So I remember asking the owner of the studio if I could clean the floors and shine the mirrors and do all that, and do whatever else she had for me work to in exchange for classes. So she said, yeah. So I started doing that, and I started taking acting classes and taking voice classes and singing and taking a lot of dance classes. So I like I was there about 2 weeks, and she said, and she knew I was sleeping in my car, so she offered me she had a little room in the back of the dance studio that had a little cot, a little tiny bed and a sink, no shower. But she said I could live back there. And I was like, oh my God, that's great. So I moved in what little I had. I moved into that little studio in the back, and I would wash up at the sink, and because there was no shower, so I had to clean up in the sink. And I would just take dance classes and singing classes and acting classes all day long, and I got really good really fast at dance for some reason. And one of the kid and so I started teaching the kids classes, and I before I knew it, one of the kids' mom was an agent and for commercials, and she said, I'd love to represent you. And I said, that'd be great. So I signed with her, and she started sending me out, and I got a couple of little commercials, and so I started getting some money. And then I did that for a while, and I danced and was doing acting classes forever. And then I'd heard that in Los Angeles, there was a dance studio called Joe Tremaine, and that's like a big dance studio, and they were having auditions. So I went to the audition, and I got uh, the scholarship. So I was taking lots of dance classes, still taking acting classes, and before I know it, I was assisting Joe Tremaine, the teacher. And at the end of the class, this really pretty short little girl comes up to me, And she says, Thom, and I go, yeah. And she says, I watch you all the time. She goes, I love watching you dance. And she goes, I'm a choreographer and I'm choreographing a video. And this was back in the like 80, maybe 85, 84, maybe. And she said, I'm doing a video. Can you come over to Debbie Reynolds' dance studio in a couple hours? And I said, yeah. So I go over there and I knock on the door, and the girl answers, and it turns out that she is Paula Abdul, and she was choreographing Nasty Boys for Janet. So I go in the room, and Janet Jackson's in there with her producers, and I danced, me and my friend Eddie Garcia, who's also she chose, and we danced, and I got the video for Nasty Boys, and then Paula was using me all kinds of commercials and stuff. And so I went to an audition for my theatrical agent. I'd gotten a theatrical agent at this point, and so I got an audition for the Tracy Ullman show, and I booked a guest starring role on that show. So my agent said, you've got to choose between dancing and acting. What do you want to do more? And I said, well, I've always wanted to be an actor, so that's what I want to do. So I quit dancing right then, even though I was working a lot as a dancer. But I wanted to be an actor more. So I did that for a while, and I did a lot of, I got cast in this old nighttime drama called Falcon Crest. And so I was on that show for a year. And then I was just doing all kinds of movies and TV and stuff and having a good career. And then my commercial agent, I was talking with her one day, and these two voiceover agents that were in the same building, they were in the same office. um, my agency, the whole agency had a voiceover department and an actor department. So these two guys were walking by, and they stopped and they said, you have a really great voice. Are you represented by somebody for voiceover? And I said, no. And they go, well, we'd love to represent you. And I said, oh, great. So I signed with them, and I read and I read and I read for about a year, and I didn't book one job for a year. And I was reading for probably about 30 things a week because my agent was a big agency and they were getting all these auditions. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm just not cut out to do voiceover. So that's when I booked Gargoyles, right when I was about to quit. And it had turned out the two agents that represented me, they had already left like in the middle of the year. And one of them, Jamie Thomason, was working at Disney, and he's the one that called me in for Gargoyles. He said, oh, I think this guy's great for this part of Lexington. So I went in and I read for him and Greg Weisman, the executive producer and creator of Gargoyles. And I booked that show, and I was like, oh my God, it was my first voiceover job. And there was everybody on the show was like a big voiceover person, like Jeff Bennett, and then there was other like big actors like Ed Asner and Tim Curry and Sheena Easton, and just amazing actors. And I was like, wow. And I remembered it was such a cool job to be able to just go dress like this or whatever I wanted. I didn't have to learn any lines because they were all on the page for me. So from there, I just I started. That kind of got me noticed in the voiceover world, which is, as you know, Robert, it's a small community of voiceover actors. It's like a very hard to get into that small group. But I did, and I did the Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat. After about a year on Gargoyles, I booked that. Yeah, and so it's the Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat, and it was being done by the same people that did The Simpsons. It was Phil Roman. And so I got that, and that was a really big deal. And that got me even more noticed in that. And it got down to, for Felix, it got down between Mayim Bialik, Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens is his name, and me. And they went with me. So I was like, wow, they probably went with me because I was the cheapest or something. But so that's how I got started in voiceover. And after a while, I was working so much in voiceover that I thought I'm going to stop doing the commercial part of acting because it was to go in and do commercials. It's a long, you have to go in, you wait for an hour, you get in, it takes a long time. And I'd done a lot of commercials, but voiceover was becoming my number one source of income and I loved it so much. So I kind of stopped doing that part of it and just dove into the voiceover stuff. And here I am. So it's been great. And how about you? What I know you do voiceover too, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And that's do you love it?
Oh, are you kidding me? Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
that's one of the main reasons why I do this podcast because usually on like a lot of podcasts, not name dropping here, it's just kind of like they just kind of go through like you got the usual laundry list of like I mean just interviews that the people just do because they're getting paid to do it. But then you have podcasts like this one and also I actually just had her on recently, so I'm just gonna give her a shout out. Amber, who
Oh,
also
I
had you on
love
her little, yeah,
yeah,
she's amazing. Yeah.
she's
So if you're
so
watching this,
sweet.
Amber,
Hi
hey,
Amber. I love
hi.
her. She's so adorable.
So
She's
people
so
like us that are just like huge nerds of like animation and just voiceover, and we just and And it's so true with going back to what you were talking about, like way back in the beginning, I think. And it really is true because VO is something that is not really easy to break into, and it takes a lot of persistence and a lot of hard work and dedication. But most
yeah,
importantly, like just the love of performing and acting. And I've always loved performing, so I was like with voiceover, it's oh, this is actually fine. Maybe I can do this. So it's kind of like your story. It's just kind of similar to me in a way because I I always loved, like I said, performing has always been something that's been one of my huge like mainstays all through my life. One of my all-time favorite career choices. Like I don't think I would imagine myself doing anything else in life, but just portray a character and be believable in imaginary
yeah,
circumstances, and it's just
that's
something that is
important.
like yeah, very important. So
Yeah.
and I just it just fires me up every time I have people like on that I just talk to, especially for shows that I grew up with, like I mean Gargoyles, like so
That
many
was a
other
good
shows that I'm
show.
gonna mention, but yeah, I also did a little bit of research, and you were on the soap opera Falcon Crest. So how is it like getting
Yeah.
to you know portraying Brian and just being a part of
Yeah.
that little show that you did?
Oh, that was a big deal to me because that was one of the shows that let me not be have to work a regular job because I was making good money on that show and that was a big deal because it was on every week it was on and I did the whole last year of it. I was in almost every episode because I booked a movie, a really cool movie called Popcorn. And if you like horror films, you'll like that one. It's a really great horror film and so I went to Jamaica to shoot that for a month. So in that month, I missed, I think, 3 or 4 episodes of Falcon Crest. Otherwise, I would have been in all 22 episodes. But that was a great, my mom and dad used to say, Tom, you better take a trade or you better go to college or you better go to school. You got to learn a trade. You better learn to weld or something. And that was the first show that my mom and dad could see me every week on. And they were like, that's my son. He's an actor. He's an actor. Because before that, they wouldn't say, oh, he's an actor because I was like struggling and trying to make it on, in anything I could do in acting. But that show really was cool because it was on every week and it was well known and it only lasted. It was the last year of the show, and then it got canceled after that very last year I was on, which was 1990, I think. I was on from 89 to 90. So that was really cool to be part of that. And with the voiceover thing with like Greg Weissman, who did Gargoyles. He wrote tons of the episodes. He's just a great guy. We became really good friends. And he also does Spectacular Spider-Man, which I play Clary and the Witch Boy on that. I don't know if you watched that or if you've seen that. Young Justice League and Young Justice League Phantoms. I'm on that too. I play this evil little. I think he's like 10 or 11-year old. God, they call him the Lord of Chaos, and he's just an evil little guy, and I love playing him. It's a blast because I get to be really, like on Gargoyles, I was the really nice, sweet guy, and getting to play a villain, is great. So that's still going. So that's good. Um, what else?
Um, yeah. I actually do want to talk to you about the Felix the Cat because I actually did not know this. I've seen like the really old Felix the Cat shorts.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I've seen the one that came out in like 90s, I think. But
yeah,
yeah,
those are the 90s.
I actually did not know that it was produced by Film Roman. That is actually
Yeah,
amazing. And
yeah,
you were Felix for season one, and then yeah, Charlie Adler had to step in for season two, but that was just really
yeah.
fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great to do with Phil because he chose me himself. Phil Roman of Film Roman. And it was yeah, I did the first I think 22 little episodes, and then it wasn't do it was on Saturday mornings on CBS, and it apparently wasn't doing that well in the ratings. So they decided to replace me with Charlie Adler. And I think he did a few episodes. And then they actually replaced Charlie Adler with Cam Clark, who was in Ninja Turtles and a ton of stuff. And Cam's a
Yeah,
great guy,
yeah,
friend.
yeah.
And Charlie's actually a really good friend of mine too.
I love
So
Charlie.
yeah, oh, he's so great. I did this series called The Buzz on Maggie for Disney. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
I
So
actually do remember that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was Pupert on that one, the little Pupert, and it was such a fun role. And Charlie directed every episode, so I got to work.
No.
Yeah, and he's so much fun as a director. He's
Dude.
just so funny. He just has everyone in all the producers, and he has the actors busting up laughing. He's such a good guy, and he's so talented too. He's a great voice actor, really good, and a
Yeah.
great actor. So, and yeah, so he replaced me, and I think for a few episodes, and then they got Cam Clark for a few episodes, and then they just canceled the show, which was a shame because it was a great show. You can see all the episodes are on YouTube for free under the Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat. And so, yeah, I'm in like about 22 of them, and then Cam's in some, and Charlie's in some. So it's depending on which episode you're like, oh, that was Thom. Oh, there's Cam. Oh, there's Charlie. It's really it was a great job. But the
Yeah.
Buzz on was also that was a blast to do too.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting when you look at how, like, for that show in particular, Felix had like three different actors all throughout the span of the show. It's like, oh, here's Thom. Oh, wait, there's Charlie, and then there's Cam, and it's like, oh, okay. So, just
Yeah.
have to keep track of this.
Well, what was even weirder than that is because after I did the I did about 20 episodes, and I got a call from my agent, and they said, "Thom, they want to see you again for Felix." And I said, "What?" I go, "I am Felix. What are you talking about?" And they said, "I don't know. Just go in. So I went into the to the audition. I went to the audition place, and as I get there, I see Mark Hamill walking out, the Mark Hamill. And I'm like, oh my God, because I've never worked with Mark, but he's amazing. And he comes walking out, and I said, hi, Mark. And he goes, hey, he goes, what were you doing? And he goes, oh, I was auditioning for Felix. And he goes, wait, don't you do Felix? Aren't you Felix? And I said, yeah, I am. I don't know what I'm doing here. So he goes, you're so good in this. I don't know why would they be replacing you? And I said, I don't know. So yeah. So apparently in voiceover, replacing voiceover actors isn't anything new. They do it often, more often than you would think. When I was
Happened to me, so I know the
yeah,
feeling. Yeah.
yeah. I did what was I do? Oh, 101 Dalmatians. I was on that show, the TV show in the 90s. It was I can't remember. Pamela Adlon. I think she played the lead little dog Lucky on there. But uh there was April Winchell, who's a voiceover goddess, um, and
I
she
should
was,
use that. Voiceover
yeah,
goddess, April Winchell.
she's amazing, and she was our Cruella for like about, I don't
Yeah.
even know, for like 50 episodes, and then all of a sudden we go in and there's Tress McNeil, who is a friend of mine, and I know we had the same agent, and she's amazing. She's another goddess, and she was replacing April Winchell. I think it was that way, or it was vice versa. Tress was the first one, and then no, I think it was April first, and then they replaced April with Tress. And it's the same thing like when I did the Rice Krispies. I was Snap for 5 years for the voice of Snap. And one day I'm in there, they changed advertising agencies. And so we're in there doing a couple of the TV spots. Me and this girl, Mona Marshall, she played uh, Pop, and Crackle was in Chicago. And so we were all the advertising agency was in Chicago. So we're doing this one and a couple of commercials, and we have our headphones on, and Mona's next to me, and there's the engineer just by himself, and then the advertising agencies are on in our headphones. And so we did several takes of this one spot, and they said, Thom, can you try it this way? I don't know what, try him a little louder, or they gave me several different things, and I would do it, and I go, okay, Thom, try him a little more excitable, try him a little more. And so I kept doing this, and I thought I was nailing it. And this was a new advertising agency. So they said, okay, we got what we want, we think. Why don't you guys go and sit and have some coffee, and we'll call you back in a minute. So we left. Oh, we didn't leave yet. We were still getting grabbing our pencils and stuff like that. And we heard over our headphones the people on the other end say, well, can we just replace him? And I was like, and I knew they were talking about me because the only one in the other room was Mona, and she's a girl. So, and she looks at me and goes, oh my God. And the engineer goes, I'm so sorry. He thought he cut our headphones off. And the people on the other side didn't know that I could hear him. And I thought, oh, they're going to replace me. I might as well say something. So I said, hey, you guys, I can hear you. And they were like, oh, okay. Uh, we're going to end the session for the day. Okay. Thanks, Thom. Thanks, Mona. And that was it. And then I never went in again. And so they replaced me with somebody, and I saw one commercial with a different snap, and then they stopped making them talk. They made the characters, like if you see a Rice Krispies commercial today, they don't speak. So it's so weird when you get replaced, and at first it's heartbreaking, but then you kind of learn that Greg Weisman, who did Gargoyles, he wrote another show called Max Steel, and it was like one of the first CGI animated series on TV, and it was a good show. And he literally wrote the part for me because we became good friends. So he wrote this part. He said, this character is half Mexican, half German, because I'm half Mexican, half German. They made him speak 5 languages, which I don't. But he wrote the character for me. So I had to audition for it anyway, even though he wrote it for me. Auditioned like 3 different times and I got it. So I go into the pilot to do the pilot, and I said, you guys want me to do a Hispanic accent? Do you want me to have some kind of accent? And they go, no, no, no accent at all. We want, just straight up you. And so I was like, okay, great. So I did it. And we did the whole episode. And Ben Vereen, the famous Ben Vereen, was also in the show. And then we did the episode. We laughed. I thought, oh, this is great. And they said, okay, we've been picked up. And then all of a sudden I get a call from Greg, or is it Jamie Thomason, somebody whoever was directing it. I don't remember. But they called and said, Tom, we have bad news. They're going to replace you with this actor named something Vargas. He's does a lot of work on camera, a lot of work. Jacob Vargas, and we're going to replace you. And so I was like, what? This role was written for me. It's me. How can you replace me with me? It was so crazy. So then I got over it. I thought, okay, I'm replaced. But then, like about a couple months later, Greg called me in for a guest star on it. So I went in, and there's Jacob Vargas doing my role, and it was so weird because he was doing it with kind of an accent, and they didn't want an accent. And so I'm like, well, I could have done that if they would have asked me to do an accent. I can do an accent, but that's just part of the business, getting replaced. It's weird because it doesn't happen in like movies and TV and on camera stuff very rarely. So that was a strange, thing to get used to in voiceover, that you can get replaced like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, even if you like, who's a good example? Like Bob Bergen, who has been
Yeah,
Porky Pig in like forever, taking over after the great Mel Blanc left us. He got replaced as Porky for like, I think countless times. I can't even keep count of the numbers, how many times he had to literally re-audition for.
you're
I mean,
kidding. I
and
didn't
that's the
know
thing
that.
too. Yeah, like I think for Warner Brothers, I think I've read that like since they don't want to get into the trouble of like having only one voice actor claim to be like the next Mel Blanc, they've had to literally re-audition all the Looney Tunes characters in
Well,
so
now it's
many
Eric
different projects.
Bauza.
Yeah.
It's my
Yeah,
friend
Eric
Eric
Bauza.
Bauza now. Yeah,
And then
he's the
sometimes it
same
would
one.
be Jeff Bergman or it would be Billy West. So it's like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a lot of Bugs Bunny, like 3 or 4 different Bugs Bunny voice actors that are like doing the character. And now it's I mean, in the case of Disney, I know that everybody knows is Bill Farmer, who's been Goofy forever. And
Forever.
as far as I know, like ever since like the 80s. So he hasn't been replaced in, you know, new projects and et cetera, et cetera. I think Disney is kind of different. I'm not really sure how. I mean, like, look at me being like the animation nerd. So, yeah, I do want to quickly go over Gargoyle since that's pretty much,
Oh,
it's not the only thing that you're known for, but it's like, I mean,
it's my favorite job ever.
it's definitely like, I mean, like, when it came out in the 90s, like, it was like it came out around the same time as like we got Darkwing Duck, Batman,
Yeah,
so many different shows that I watched as a kid, and Gargoyles was there. I mean, like with the Disney Afternoon, like I said, you had Darkwing, DuckTales, all these other great shows, and then you got Gargoyles, which was something that Disney had not. I don't think they've even
nothing
like
like
as far
that.
as I know, they can't even. I don't know if they could even like I mean, you got Greg Weisman because of you said that you've worked with him on Spider-Man and stuff like that, but like it was really like a huge game changer for them because like I said, it came out around the same time as Batman. So you know that it was some pretty stiff competition. But Gargoyles was a great show on its own because it it was like because you have these it took place at night and you know I'm kind of around a night owl anyways and it was just something that was so
Dark and
different
more
like the
serious.
casting of the characters like you have people from Star Trek you had like
Yeah.
actors like Ed
Marina
Asner
Sirtis and Marina
they were
Sirtis and
amazing
Jonathan Frakes and just some great people.
just amazing guest stars on the show. It really was
Oh
like you were
my,
watching. Um, it felt like you were watching an adaptation of like Hamlet or Shakespeare in a way because you had
well,
people that
Greg is a
actually came
huge,
from that background.
yeah, and Greg's an enormous Shakespeare fan. I mean,
Oh, I
he's
can
an
tell
oh he
Macbeth.
oh he
Yeah,
loves it.
and the
Yeah,
names of the characters too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
I'm a huge mythology type of guy, so
yeah,
I can definitely see it. He definitely put in the research and the love and the just the
yeah.
artistry in the show because that's just how unique and just how so gosh darn good it was.
Oh, it was
Yeah, and
so
it still
good.
holds
It
up to
was
this day.
so good.
That's the best part. Like, you watch a show from like 30 or so years ago, like I'm rewatching Batman, and I'm gonna start binging Gargoyles, and these shows still hold up, even to
Yeah,
this in this day and age,
yeah. Well, with
as much as when we
Gargoyles,
were
it was
kids.
so
Yeah,
it was
it's
so great. And
timeless.
yeah, and the fan base for Gargoyles when they actually started having after the was it during this show or after they started having like gargoyle cons, and I went to them and I met the fans and they were just so amazing. In a huge a big part of the fandom was like people that were on the spectrum. And I think a lot of times, like with gargoyles, they were outcasts. And I think people could relate to that. And people that are on the spectrum
Yeah,
could
yeah.
really relate to that. And it was so wonderful to meet them. And they were all so kind. And I was like, I'm getting paid to like be people have praise me every 2 minutes, say, "Oh my God, you're so great." And I was like, wow, it was just the best feeling. And it just showed how many people, just loved that show. It was such a great show. It was just sad that it ended. So, I think it
Yeah.
should have been running for 10 years at least because it was so good. But it got, there was political stuff with Disney and the producers and the writer. There was just all kinds of stuff that was going on behind the scenes because the ratings were through the roof. They were great. And yet we got canceled after I think we did like 80 something episodes, I think. But yeah, that show still holds up. And it's still one of my very favorite shows to have ever done. My first and my very favorite. And the next favorite would be I like well, Spider-Man was really fun, but Young Justice League has been just really awesome to work on too. And they happen to all be shows that my friend Greg is part of. And thank God for him. He's just an incredible human being.
Yeah. Man, I could just talk about this forever, but
Yeah.
yeah, maybe at some point in the future I would love to do a follow-up with you because there's a bunch of other stuff that we got to discuss like,
Yeah, write it down and
industry and yeah.
yes, yes. I want to say something that quick about the industry. And I was lucky enough to like one of those first few jobs I got as an actor, as a TV actor. I did a movie of the week and I only had 5 lines. My character didn't even have a name. It was my name. The name was boy, and then there was girl. There was boy and girl, and we were like this integral part of this the bigger part of the movie. But it was just 5 lines, and I remember reading for it. I went to Universal Studios to read for it, And I had some of my friends that were my good friends. They also read for it, but it was 5 lines. And I went in, I read, and anybody could have done those 5 lines. But then when we had the read through, the table read, I asked the producer, I said, "Hey, why did I get this role and over other actors?" And I was genuinely curious. And he said, "You know what, Tom?" He goes, "You read as good as some guys, and some guys read better than you, and you read better than some guys." He said, "But when you walked in the door, you reminded me of my nephew who lives in Connecticut and I haven't seen in 5 years." And he said, "Your energy and something about you just reminded me of my nephew." And so I thought, wow, that's why I got that part, because I reminded him of his nephew. But then I thought, well, wait, what if I would have reminded him of the bully? Maybe some bully used to beat him up in school. What if I reminded him of that guy? Then I wouldn't have gotten that part no matter what. So it made me learn, it made me go, okay, so you really don't have a lot of control. We just have control over what we do and how we make ourselves feel. Like, I feel good about this read, I feel good about this part. And that's all you can do, because you have no control over it. And it helped me through the rest of my career. When I would read for jobs I wanted so bad and I wouldn't get it. And I can just go, well, I I just, for what you can't figure out the reason why. There is no reason. They know the reason, but you don't. So all you can do is do your best.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
is
and that.
just, yeah.
So if you would like to write some questions down again, and let's do it in a month or so. Let's do some follow-ups. I would love it.
Yeah, of course. This has been a lot of fun. As you can tell, I'm just even more jazzed than ever getting to speak with a Gargoyles cast member. So,
Ah,
thank you
let's
so
do
much
it.
for taking your time to do this tonight. I
Oh,
really do
I'm
appreciate
so glad to do it, Robert. I'm happy to do it. And it's really nice to meet you. Finally.
it. Yeah, I know, right? We've been planning this for a while. I mean, this usually
Yeah,
happens with my guests. We plan stuff out for a while, and then when we finally do it, it's like, yes, I
it
did it.
worked. Yay.
Yay! Especially the technical difficulties, like issues from earlier, which, oh boy.
Uh,
But yeah,
it, it's a
that,
part of my daily life, technical difficulties. It's
yeah.
it's a
But with
part of
all,
me.
of course. So I guess with all that said, I guess we'll just sign out for tonight. And for anybody who
Yeah.
watched this, thank you so much for listening in. This will be up at some time, at some point. If not this evening, then definitely by tomorrow or the next few
Oh,
days.
wow,
So,
that's
yep,
fast. Well,
yep.
thank you, Robert. It's been so nice talking with you, and let's talk again soon, okay?
Yeah, and until then, this is Robert signing out. And until then, stay safe, everybody, and enjoy the glorious rain.
Yay,
And
I
until
love the
then,
rain. We need it.
yeah, and until then, take care, y'all, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Thank you, Robert.
Peace out,
Okay, I'll talk
folks.
to you later. Bye.
Peace. Bye.
Good